I have a story for you now, and it's a story that goes as low as the depths of the earth and drags things from the sea, and is as high and as mighty as shining gold. It is said that when the world was young, when it was just beginning, and Ymir's skull was still freshly spread from his body to make the sky, it is said around then that dwarves appeared, the dark elves, like maggots in rotting meat. They just sprung up, which I think is probably a disservice to dwarves. And people love the things which dwarves make, but they don't particularly like dwarves. Not biased in any way. But there were a family of dwarves who lived in the base of the mountain, and they were fantastic workers of metal, all of them. But also, they all had specialities. Raidamar was the name of the chief of all and the father. Fafnir, his oldest son, was grim and stern and a warrior. Otter was a shapeshifter and was all over the place. Regin, though, was skilled in the working of metal, and he was the smith in the family, a smith of smiths. He could craft things that would make legends. But I was talking about early days in the realms. And, well, in Asgard, the Aesir were also finding out about all the realms. And Odin, always hungry for knowledge, wanted to find out about the different areas and what would happen in each and who was who and what was what. So he'd go wandering, in disguise, of course, shedding his might, not taking his spear, if it had even been forged by then. Wearing a broad-brimmed hat, he would go under the name of Grim and turn up in people's houses looking for hospitality. And occasionally he would travel and he would take people with him, Aesir with him. And on this particular morning, he was out walking with Loki, the cunning, the clever, the fire that is just about tamed, but always ready to burn, or always ready to show light in interesting places. So, a good friend to Odin and Honir, and they were all wandering. They were wandering in Midgard and around the borders of Jotunheim, around the borders of Niflheim, time and space. They float a little bit. They were in a dale, a broad valley at the foot of the mountains, following a river up towards the hills, where there were great waterfalls, some which would fall from the sky, and as they were rolling down, become water, and then become clouds again further down the valley. Others of which were filled with life and teeming with fish. And it was near one of those that they sat while they had a spot of lunch. And watching out over the water, Loki started to skim stones. Because, you want to see how many times you can make your stone skip. And then Loki saw over on the other side, he saw a sleek creature diving into the pool, searching around and diving up, coming back up, having caught something. And Loki, seeing the creature catch things, thought, I wonder if I can catch the creature. That would be one up. He got the stone, and he hit the beast on the head and killed it outright. Ha ha! He jumped up and ran over. And quick as a flash, he'd skinned the otter and collected the skin and put it on his belt. Nice prize for the day. I've been busy, I've been clever. Just don't talk to me about that. So they started walking again, and they followed the river further up, and they started to climb into the heights. And they followed the river, and the river was flowing, and they saw there was another waterfall, and behind the waterfall there was a cave. Well, you or I might call it a cave because it was cunningly crafted to look that way, but actually the cave was a doorway to a great dwelling. And as Odin and Loki and Honir walked inside, they saw great towers and spires all gathered round to make a magnificent dwelling place in the depths of the mountain. They heard the sound of hammering, the tap, tap, tap of silversmiths, and the dong, dong of the blacksmiths. And then they found themselves in the great hall. and sitting on the great hall was a dwarven lord on his throne, fierce and grim, but also friendly because, the world was young. Enemies hadn't been formed yet, and friends were out there for the finding. So, well, they all sat down, and the dwarf asked them to introduce themselves. And of course, they used their travelling names: Grim, Grimson, and even Grimmer. Don't want to reveal quite who they are just now, do they? Um, and the dwarf said, I can offer you a great meal this evening. My son is an excellent fisher. He can catch a great haul of salmon, and he brings them to us, and we cook them and eat them and drink lots of mead. Loki started to look a little shifty. But, said the dwarf, what treasures have you found in your wanderings? Tell me about the world outside. What trophies do you have that show what you've been doing? And Loki, forgetting himself, said, Look, I caught this fine otter skin. Is this not a fine? Why are you looking that way? Because as Loki held out the otter skin, lightning started to buzz round the head of Hreidamar. Fury was in his eyes, because Hreidamar was the dwarven lord, and Hreidamar had looked down and seen in Loki's hands the skin of his son, Otter. Not just Otter in name, but Otter in shape. Otter would change shape and dive down and fetch the salmon from the deep waters and bring it back. And here was Loki presenting the skin to him. He clapped once, and suddenly the dwarves emerged from all of their smithies, and they grabbed Odin, they grabbed Loki, they grabbed Honir and held them down. And were about to kill him. And Loki said, Stop, stop. There's been a horrible mistake, a terrible misunderstanding, but don't compound it with another. If you spill blood, then there's no end to the spilling of blood. And, well, we can do something about this. Hreidamar thought, well, what price, what wergild will you pay for this hideous crime you've committed? And Odin should have said something like, I'll give you a drink from Ymir's well, or I will give you knowledge of the future, or I will give you the gift of poetry. But no. Odin's head was still full of the memory of Goldify, the love of gold, and he thought he knew exactly what to say. He said, we will cover the skin of Otter in gems and gold, so that not one hair is standing. And, well, would that be a sufficient payment? And Hreidamar looked. And although all he knew was that there were 3 grim men sitting before him, he thought maybe they were princes in their own lands. Maybe they could accomplish this task. And if they couldn't, well, where was the harm in trying? So Odin and Onir were kept there as hostages, and Loki was sent to find the gold. And he had a brief word with Odin on the way out the hall, because they knew where to go looking. Loki followed the river, went through glens, climbed over hills. He was looking for Andvari. Andvari was one of the old dwarves. Andvari had a ring. That with the ring of gold he could make gold. And he had made himself a great hoard hidden in the hill. Andvari was a shape changer too, and would change shape into a pike, a giant fish that eats fish, and swim around the depths of the pool, guarding the way to his hall. Now Loki knew that to catch Andvari, he couldn't use a rod or a line or his hands. That wouldn't work for such a wily pike. I mean, the pike could probably eat his arm if he tried that. So instead, Loki went to Ran, a relative, Loki being giant, and Ran, the giant Jotun who reeled in treasure from the sea with her great net. he reckoned was the person he needed, because if you could borrow that net, then you could catch the pike. Ran, however, was loath to lend the net to Loki. She had an inkling that it would work out, not quite to Loki's advantage. But, well, Loki was blood-bound to Odin and honour-bound to return with the gold. So he pleaded hard, he begged to borrow the net. And then he said that he was borrowing the net to catch Andvari. And at that, Ran was reasonably happy, because she had a great jealousy for Andvari. Although she could rake everything in, all the dead from the bottom of the sea, still Andvari was said to have a greater treasure. So she lent the net on the understanding that Loki would bring it back that very next day and would not show any of the Aesir how to make it, because she had a foreboding that such a thing would work out to his disadvantage. Loki wasn't thinking about that. He had the net in his hands and he was running. And this net was an awesome net that had a tricky knot about it that meant that nothing could escape. He ran to the pool where he knew Andvari lived in the depths, and he threw the net down, and he dragged, and he scraped, and the pike, seeing its doom upon it, bucked and swiveled and tried to get out, and not being a salmon, couldn't jump. So Loki dragged the net up, and Andvari in fish form was lying on the shore. Yeah, fish die in the air. They breathe water, and you can't breathe air. So Andvari had to change back into his dwarven form. Trapped in the net, he knew that his time was up. And so he asked for mercy, and he asked to be released from the net. At which Loki said, "Ha ha, yes, I have indeed bettered you. But fortunately for you, you've got a great gold hoard. Just give me the gold, and I'll let you go." Really? The dwarf went back and started pulling out boxes, started pulling out bags, and then stopped. Loki looked. Aye. And the rest of it. Go on, go on, go on. Pulled out boxes and bags, and all the bones of the earth were being skinned from it. And there was a great pile of treasure in front of Loki in Ran's net, all caught where it could not escape. Loki picked it up and was about to walk off when he saw on Andvari's finger a gold ring. "Andvari," he said, "you're trying to cheat me, aren't you? I set you free if you would give me all your gold." "A ring? Nah, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on." Andvari was now distraught. He did not want to give up this ring. This ring had a rune of power on it. This ring was the ring that meant that he could make gold. This ring was gold that bred gold. He did not want to give that up. But an oath is an oath, and he'd given his oath to Loki in escaping. And besides, Loki had managed to catch him once, maybe he could catch him twice. So taking off the ring, he handed it to Loki. "This ring with a rune of power, may it be a curse on your future and all who desire it. May it be weight that weighs you down and gold that drags you to the depths. All who wear it, their futures are doomed." And he gave it and wandered off, sulking like dwarves do exceptionally well. Loki then carried all in his net, except for that ring that he put on his finger, because it was nice. He thought it was precious. He carried it on. He carried the gold back to the hall of Hreidmar, where Odin and Honir were thinking, "Yeah, it's getting a bit late, where's this Loki?" And Loki arrived with the net. So the otter skin was spread out, and the gold started to be piled on it. The gold bars, the red gold, the yellow gold, the gems, until the whole skin was glistening, covered with gold. Hreidmar and Fafnir and Regin looked at it, and the light of the gold lit their eyes, and the love of Gulvai, a strange Jotun, entered their minds, and a sort of madness gripped them. But Odin and Loki and Honir decided now was a time to make a good exit. But as they were walking out the door, just a flash of light glinted off of Loki's finger. And Ragnar said, "Stop!" And looking at the otter skin, he saw one whisker out of the gold casing, which the rest was encrusted in. "You have not yet fulfilled your were guild. Loki, I see you through your disguise. I see a ring on your finger. I desire it. It is precious to me." And Loki, with some reluctance, pulled the ring off his finger and reached over to Ragnar and said, "Take the ring and take all that comes with it and let it go." Ragnar caught it, put it on his finger, and Odin and Loki and Honir walked out into new adventures. But the ring remained. Fafnir and Regin looked on at their father with the ring. Regin was still holding his hammer from his forge. With one swing, he beat Ragnar over the head and killed him outright. Then Fafnir pulled the helm of dread from the treasure trove and weapon store of his father, and wearing it, Regin knew there was no way he would win a fight over the gold. And Fafnir went off into the mountains, taking the gold with him. And there he sat on the gold and brooded over the treasure. Regin, however, went to the world of men and hid, biding his time, working out a way how he could gain the gold from his brother. And so the ring remained dormant and forgotten for a long time until another hero came along. But that is another story. And for now, I've told you the story of Odin and Loki and Honir and of Otter. For the other stories, you have to come back another time. So thank you for your time and for listening, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening.